What if I told you that there were people all around you every single day, making decisions, buying things, wearing clothes, playing video games, building communities based all around a belief system that you had never even heard of? What if I told you that these same people were operating on this loyalty to something that you had missed entirely? An entire generation and an entire culture of people moving through life right next to you, within plain view, maybe even some of your friends or family members. They were all raised by the same person. Not a parent, not a teacher, but someone named Tom. No, not Tom from MySpace. This Tom. Yeah, this guy right here. And if you don't know who that is, then this video is for you. I'm going to tell you all about what was Toonami, what did it teach us as individuals, what does it mean for somebody who's trying to build something or launch something into the world that maybe they don't all get yet, and what does it mean for all of us as a whole, and how did this little network do something so special, so resonant in so many people? I'm going to break all that down for you more in this video. My personal journey with Toonami started back when I was 7 years old. I remember sitting up and watching Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network ended, and then this warning came on that said some of the viewership might not be good for mature audiences. It was basically a mature content warning, and I'm like, turning around, my grandma's on the sofa asleep, and I'm like, my grandma's here, and she's pretty mature, so I guess I can probably watch this. It's gonna be fine. And then there's this guy who pops up on the screen, this robot who's in this massive spaceship out in the middle of the stars, and he talks like this. My name is Tom, and you're watching Toonami. Up next is Dragon Ball Z, and then bo. And I had never seen these Japanese cartoons in my life before, with one exception of Dragon Ball Z. He's showing these bumpers that are flashing across the screen of all this action and animation, people punching each other in the face, magical girls transforming. My eyes are the size of dinner plates because I'm just like, this is amazing. I love illustration, I love drawing. It's all this Japanese cartoons that I've never seen in my life before. So all this new stuff flashing across the screen absolutely inundates my brain, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I want to see more of it. And it's all guided by this little robot guy named Tom. I do some more research, and later on in life, I find out that Toonami was actually created back in 1997 and saw the rise of this guy, Tom, in the year 2000. Cartoon Network did this thing wherever they wanted to revitalize or revamp their entire network or whatnot. So they added some new visuals, and Toonami used to be hosted by this guy, Space Ghost, but in the year 2000, they brought on Tom. He wasn't originally voiced by Steve Bloom, who's a deep voice guy who you probably heard voicing in something like Samurai Champloo for the English dub. He's done a lot of other stuff, which will be listed here. But I just knew from that point on, every time I heard his voice announcing Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Bobobo, Pokemon, or the Powerpuff Girls, I was going to be in for the ride of a lifetime. It felt like I was getting transported to another country, another world, because honestly, so much of it was anime. It was a lot of anime I'd never seen before. There was no place to watch anime on American TV. Toonami was literally the only spot doing it. It was doing it since the year 2000. Toonami was the only place on TV at access. We had Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, all these shows, and the best part about it, they also did game reviews. This guy was introducing us to brand new TV, new artistry, as well as new games, and all the soundtracks were set to like drum and bass. So they were taking these things called bumpers. They weren't even the full show, it was just clips of the shows they showed on Toonami through the programming block, and they would mix it together with this drum and bass music, which I'd only ever heard on the Powerpuff Girls up to this point. But now you have this whole aesthetic of this deep space theme coming at you late at night as a kid. This guy named Tom with this super cool deep voice is announcing what's happening next. He's telling you about video games, shows you've never heard of, and languages you don't know how to speak. And then he's also telling you about all this great music. And then he's also reviewing all this insane music as well. Toonami felt like the cooler older cousin or big brother that I never knew I wanted. And he was just chill with everything. There's a lot of moments and things that were happening in these shows that I just wouldn't see on American programming and television. And my 10-year-old brain is having like its gray matter reorganized as I'm watching all this stuff. And it's absolutely incredible. And I love it so very much. And it wasn't just me who was having this experience, it was people across the country. But it's crazy that to this day, I will walk up to people and be like, hey, you remember watching Toonami as a kid, right? They don't remember jack. Nothing. They've never even seen this. And I'm like, how was this programming block going from 1997 to today? And people have never seen it. But then I also remember that most people have not watched anime. And it's only thanks to now shows like One Piece, the live action on Netflix, are starting to get more people into anime and watching these things. Like, oh wow, anime is kind of cool. Which brings me to my next point. I'm gonna talk about the culture that it created. As a kid, after I had discovered Toonami and started watching Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, even bits of One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh! Happened from time to time, I thought everybody thought this was the coolest thing ever. That's not the case, man. My story personally, when I was growing up, I was going to school and like, hey, you guys see that new episode yet? You guys see that new episode of Dragon Ball Z last night? Biggest mistake I could have ever made in my life. On the playground, all the cool kids pointed and laughed at me. And they regaled me. I'm like, okay, cool. Not socially acceptable to watch like amazing shows with incredible storylines and feature like, yeah, they talk in Japanese and makes funny sounds sometimes, but it just wasn't culturally cool. It wasn't popular. It's not what you do. You don't like, you don't get any street cred for saying you've seen all the episodes of Dragon Ball Z. Back then, it just wasn't cool to like anime. But Toonami was steadily feeding us pieces of this foreign culture from across the ocean that we had no other way to get access to. But later, every night, Tom is dropping these dope hints, dropping these little nuggets of new music, dropping some drum and bass tracks, showing us a new episode of Outlaw Star or Big O. All these giant mechs fighting each other. And this was the only place I could get it. And I'm like, you know what, fine. Even if they don't think it's cool, I know this stuff is sick. This is bomb. And there are those few kids on the playground who also know it's bomb. Fast forward to today, you look around you, you have people like Meg Thee Stallion. I think she's doing incredible, amazing work with taking so many Western influences, pairing them with like Eastern music and cultures. You can see this in the way she reps so many different iconic looks for her music videos, for her performances. I haven't watched JoJo yet, but she had her JoJo look going for the VMAs. And then you have people like Childish Gambino, who used to post, I believe he used to post like anime, like cringe anime on his spam accounts on Tumblr way back in the day. So you take me getting bullied and resigned to the nerdy kids on the playground to fast forwarding to this year, or I guess last year, whenever the One Piece live action show came out on Netflix. And if you haven't seen it, it's so true. The way I knew that the culture had shifted and finally started to accept anime was because I was sitting in this airport lounge. I'm like reading a book or something like that, maybe reading some manga, but I'm sitting here reading some manga and I hear over my shoulder the 64-year-old lady like, oh my goodness, did you see the new episode of One Piece? Oh, that Captain Buggy sure is something. I'm excited to see how Luffy and his crew deal with him. And I'm like, what the what? What the what? Why is the 64-year-old white lady talking about my Captain Luke? And I realized that like anime has reached a point in America now to where not only is it socially acceptable, it's like just culturally like normal now. And it's also a weird thing where like now the anime kids who are getting bullied are like trying to gatekeep. I'm like, that's not what we're doing. That's not what Tom would have wanted. That is not at all what Tom would have wanted. The whole time we were watching Toonami, Tom was also doing these bumpers and like talking about like dreams. That was another beautiful part about Toonami. Like it wasn't just about like the anime. There were these overarching messages and themes that they would tie in to like almost legitimately intentionally try to like raise our generation. This one bumper in particular, I think I'll play it right here.
A boy has the right to dream. There are endless possibilities stretched out before him.
They took all these pieces from different anime about like dreaming for like going for the stars and knowing that things would be difficult but still going for it anyways. Nobody was doing that on TV except maybe TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network. Throwback, drama, but they were doing it on Toonami. Like no one had to do that, but they like intentionally said, hey, look, for our viewers and listeners out there, here's some hope. And that stuck with me to this day. You see like their music influence, like the actual anime itself that they brought to America, like they were solely responsible for like importing anime into America. The only other people who were doing that was maybe like Disney whenever they like helped like distribute Studio Ghibli movies like Spirited Away. But outside of that, it was Toonami with the drum and bass, the late night music, the Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, all these new anime that American kids would never get a chance to experience on this late night programming block. And now in the culture, you have people, this is supposed to be only for nerds, and now it's like secretly weaving its way into all these cultures across the world. Let's bring in some opposition here. Here's the thing about anime that I think people are originally opposed to it for. There are a lot of cultural differences in Japanese, maybe entirely Eastern media and culture versus American culture. For example, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and say all anime is created equal and all anime is just great and wonderful. I think culturally things are different in Japan, and it's like, yeah, that's a normal thing. Over in America, we're like, yo! And so I understand why some parents, or my mom specifically, was like, yeah, we're not gonna watch any Japanese anime in this household, you know? So I had to sneak and watch Toonami. But I will say that as time has passed, there's been a lot more anime and manga that has been made with like a more global and universal like audience in mind. So I will say there's like some sentiment that people can experience and feel like, oh, this is just not appropriate for like American audiences. But again, like I said, you have over time seen even people make like, okay, well, let's make a more Americanized anime because the lessons and the things that anime teaches are very good and healthy, especially the ones that like Toonami is promoting and putting out there. But you see things like Avatar: The Last Airbender, which there's a lot of debate over, is this anime, is it not? I'm gonna say it's anime because it has similar aesthetics, it's got a similar style, and also follows similar pacing, structure, and sentiments of anime. You know, it's not like your average American cartoon like Family Guy where like, oh, you sit down and watch any episode, it's like, oh, I get it. And it's just a bunch of jokes, there's no real progression, there's no real action or anything like that. But I think Avatar: The Last Airbender could be considered an American anime. And we wouldn't have Avatar: The Last Airbender if it weren't for programming blocks like Toonami to introduce anime to us in the first place and give everybody a palette for it. Like, if you love Avatar: The Last Airbender, you have Toonami to thank for that. And I think that's just a couple examples of where anime has shown up today in popular culture. Again, you have people like Meg Thee Stallion. If you know Noah Lyles, one of the fastest men on earth, loves his anime. And finding friends through anime has been one of the most life-changing experiences for me ever. And again, these have all come consistently through places like Toonami, which introduced us to all of these things, you know? I keep on saying anime, but I'm really using that interchangeably with Toonami because up until like maybe 2008, 2010, the only place you could really reliably find anime was through Toonami. And I think it's such an amazing thing that Toonami was not really getting the recognition at the time. It was always pushed like the back end of the programming block, but like they knew what they were doing and they were doing it so intentionally, which is what makes me really passionate about this because it wasn't the most popular thing. In fact, people actively were fighting against Toonami. There were shows like Samurai Champloo, which introduced not just drum and bass, but hip hop and anime. It was a beautiful mixing of these cultures. And I think that's another reason I personally am so passionate about Toonami because it's multicultural. And it really reflects the way I've grown up in the world. Like I've grown up around white kids, black kids, Asian kids, and I've been best friends with all of them. And those are like my people. And Toonami feels like it reflects that in so many different ways. You see so many multicultural examples of characters in these shows like Outlaw Star. But I feel like Toonami actually took time to sit us down and teach us about these different values through these shows. Like they handpick shows, I feel like that reinforce like healthy masculinity, you know? You have characters like Goku. You see these characters struggle through adversity and defeat over and over again. You see these people constantly getting their butt kicked and their brains rocked and rattled. And I'm like, what do? They keep on getting back up. And it wasn't just in the shows. Again, you had the bumpers that were reminding people like, hey, when life gets hard, sometimes you need your friends to help you out. I believe it also taught us like this navigation through struggle. You know, shows like Samurai Champloo, which were a little bit more mature. But you see their struggle time and time again, especially towards the end of the show. They have to really question, like, what is it all for? Who am I? Who do I want to be? And why am I doing this? And where am I going? And to be faced with that as a kid, like just, again, I'm talking about after school, I'm sitting down watching this or late at night going to bed. I'm like, yeah, who am I? What do I want in my life? You're not getting that anywhere else. And Toonami is sitting here feeding it to us, but it's also not just doing this in a reckless way. It's this curation of these ideas and these emotions and these themes that like this younger crowd of like anybody from age 7 to 18 doesn't really have anywhere else to like, wrestle with, I guess. And also, it does a beautiful job of like introducing healthy masculinity. Like, Toonami was like usually geared more towards guys, but then at the same time you had shows like Card Captor Sakura and then Sailor Moon. And I love it because I'm sitting here watching Dragon Ball Z, but then Sailor Moon comes on, I'm like, all right, well, I guess this is kind of a girl show, but let's see how these women fight crime and stuff, I guess. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, Sailor Mercury really knows what she's doing out there. Like Sailor Venus, I could have handled that differently, but I think she's pulling her weight and she's doing a good job. She's a great addition to the team. And I'm getting to see these dynamics between women I had nowhere else to experience. I didn't see these anywhere else. But again, you're getting these curated moments and these curated ideas, themes, and shows served up in like a safer environment. And I feel like you also get a peek at healthy masculinity in the way some of these characters deal with like the struggle and the loss. You see a lot of these main characters crying, weeping, and trying their best for like the people that they care about, you know? Again, Samurai Champloo, Full Metal Alchemist, Dragon Ball Z, where else are you gonna see a man like crying and weeping for something he cares about? In these shows, they show that on the regular. And as I even explain this now, it reminds me that like most of my role models in life are fictional and half of them are anime characters. What does that mean? I can pull together a group of friends and a group of people who care about the same things I do if I care enough about them and give them a vision on where we want to go and how we're going to get there and never lose sight of it and keep on going no matter what happens. I learned this from anime. Tom taught me this. Tom is sitting here serving up these anime like, yeah. And again, Toonami's just serving this stuff up like, up next is One Piece. A show all about friendship and sticking by your friends no matter what happens. What are we talking about? Even Disney Channel isn't doing that. Disney Channel's over here teaching me like, yo, you should really hate your older sister if she's different from you. And the older sister like, you should hate your younger brother if he's different. It just blows my gourd how this programming block was so far-sighted to be able to offer like kids palatable philosophy on life. Like through the shows and the monologues and the music and the things they would review as well. Like, who told you to do that? Like, who told you that you should be doing that for people? But they believed in what they were doing, right? They believed in this. I'm jazzed. What does this mean to you? All of those people probably learned about anime for the first time through Toonami. If you're my age and my demographic, you're millennial, you probably first heard about anime through Toonami or a friend who watched Toonami. That cooler older brother figure programming block late at night that would come on and introduce you to all these cool shows, right? And maybe you went your whole life without knowing about it, but maybe you're like me and you've known about this thing. And here's what I want to tell you. Here's why I think it matters to you. Because in life, as an artist, as somebody who creates content on social media, as someone who studies like what does success look like, as someone who studies psychology in business, bro, the truth of the matter is, similar to Toonami in its early days, you might have one of the best things ever that can completely change and shape someone's life, culture, and society. But Toonami hasn't even been well known for Toonami is still going on. I don't watch Toonami currently, but I could not be where I am today without the influences that it brought to me. And what I'm trying to say is, whatever it is that you're working on might be that Toonami for somebody else. That world that you're building, that thing in your soul that you really want to do, it might never have the widespread success of the most viral thing on the internet. And as of today, right now, I think there's so many moments and times when it's like, if it's not going viral, it's not worth it. Bullcrap. That is ridiculous. That is stupid. That is not true. Toonami has been one of the most successful programming blocks in bringing something good. It didn't even really make that many new things. It was just curating. Do you get that? It was simply taking things that already existed and saying, hey, let me package this in a way that makes it palatable for you guys. And it would add some monologues. It would add a little thing to tie it all together, like the spaceship and outer space theme. But the point is, nobody knows about it. You think it's more popular than it is if you know about it, because it feels like it's your whole life. It built your world if you're like me, But a lot of the population does not know about anime. They don't know about Toonami, right? That thing that you're working on, that you believe in, that you love, that you think the world really needs, that you might really need, or that you wanted to bring out into the world for your younger self, you need to do it. It matters, okay? The internet does not define the success of your artistry, because if one person needs what you're trying to make or what you want to bring out into the world, it's worth it. Your art, your ideas, and your quiet gifts that maybe you keep to yourself could be somebody's Toonami. As an artist, I have to sit here and believe that the stuff I'm working on and the things I really care about are somebody's Toonami. I've been fortunate to see some success in my work, but I know it can be hard as a creative when you put something out there into the world and it does not get the reception you think it immediately deserves. Like, what would happen if Toonami had put this stuff out and they were like, wow, this is not our best performing programming block for 5 or 10 years, man. And they would have quit. Or they would have stopped after like the first year of it not being the best performing thing out there. They would have quit. And I think what it says to me is that you gotta love what you're making too. There is a world with, yes, you gotta do what you gotta do to move forward, but don't ever forget the passion behind what it is you're doing. Keep that passion close to you. Cared about drum and bass music enough to include it. They cared about the outer space thing. They cared about the idea of dreams. They cared about philosophy, making sure that there's a demographic that can be guided and led into this new space of media, thoughts, and exposure to other cultures in a way that was safe enough and still challenged a lot of the ways we think over here in the West. That's what Toonami did, and its ripples are still being felt today across the world, across America especially. I will say this with almost certainty, challenge me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but so much of the anime that has existed in America now was first introduced to this little programming block called Toonami. Whether it was somebody you knew who introduced you to more, they probably found it first on Toonami. A lot of kids I know my age who are getting into anime were not going to Japan to discover anime. We found it on Toonami. I believe the thing we learn about ourselves through what Toonami has done is that there's something in us that matters to other people as well. I think what this says to me is the thing you got to think about whenever you're creating something. If you have a new idea or a novel concept, it might not catch on immediately. And as somebody who struggles with perfectionism, that's hard for me to hear sometimes. But I want to introduce the concept to you guys that this is something that has existed for a long time, that is influencing half to a quarter of the American population, that you might have never heard about and is still going strong. It doesn't have to be for everybody, but what you have to make, you have to put out there, because the people it's for will find it. They will value it and it will resonate with them. All right. That's what Toonami teaches us. And that is what it means to be cool. All right. You gotta be cringe a little bit. Like, oh my God, as a kid on the playground, people were like, oh, that's cringe. You like Pokemon, you like Dragon Ball Z, that's cringe. Today, people wearing the shirt, it's one of the best ways to connect with a stranger like ever found. Like we all have that similar thing of like, oh, you remember when it was like not cool back in the day? I'm like, I remember when it was not cool, and now it's the best thing ever. Now Gwyneth and her friend Cheryl are talking about Captain Loopy and Captain Buggy in the airport, and it's a cool thing now. Those things that matter, those things that could change lives, are not always the coolest thing at the time. They might find their time later on, they might not, but you gotta love what you do and believe in it so much that just seeing one person impacted by it positively can help you keep on going. Or even you just doing it, the process of you getting into it, creating this programming block, sharing these ideas and these thoughts is still so very worth it that you would still do this for free even. Maybe not for free. Maybe not entirely for free, but you care about it that much that you would do it regardless. Look, I'll say this. The thing that you're working on might not be the most popular thing in the world, but it might be exactly what's needed to change someone's life. Find your people who appreciate it, find your people who love it, and make sure they are well taken care of with your art, your ideas, your community, or whatever it is they need. And make sure that you absolutely love showing up for it time and time again, because there will be times when nobody looks at it and nobody cares. And I can tell you right now, that most of the most impactful and most important things had moments and times where nobody looked at it and nobody cared. All right. Or they were some version of something before where nobody looked at it and nobody cares. Because it's really easy to see somebody succeeding and feel like, oh, wow, they got it all together. Their idea is perfect. Their business plan is perfect. Their artwork is going so far. Oh my God, that's so good. Like, it's okay. You're doing all right. Keep on working on it. Find the people who need it. And trust yourself, trust the process, and love the process, and imbue so much of your love and passion into it. Whether you're curating, whether you're making something new, it's valid and the world needs it. All right. Even if somebody else is doing a similar version, do your version, because we want to see it and we need it. All right. Half the population might not know about it. Most of the population might not know about it. But there are people out there who might be using the thing. Half the world might not know about it. Half the people might not know about it. But hey, there are going to be people out there who might be singing the song lyrics you wrote, watching the show that you made. Maybe it's a webtoon, maybe it's a little web series you produce on your own. They're quoting it to each other, they're quoting it to their family members, all because you decided to start and put it out there and make sure that it could exist. That's what Toonami did, and that's what I think we should do as a community and as a people and as creatives, as artists, as gig workers, wherever we are with an idea, art, community, or something that we're passionate about. And I hope you guys get into it. And if there's something you're working on or scared to put out before, be like Toonami, put it out there and get it started. Let me know down in the comments what you're working on. And again, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. Stay awesome. Until next time.